The trap. He shut every gate, fired every worker, vanished from public life for years. Then one day, Willy Wonka mails 5 tickets to 5 children and invites them inside the one place on Earth nobody's allowed to go. That's not hospitality. That's a trap. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. This isn't a tour. It's an interview, and every kid in that factory is a candidate who doesn't know they're being tested. The genius who stopped trusting people, Wonka, didn't just make candy. He reinvented it, faster than anyone could copy. So rivals stopped competing and started stealing. Spies got planted. Recipes leaked. Every invention got copied before he could sell it. One morning, the gates just closed. No workers in, no workers out. Here's the part that doesn't add up. Chocolate didn't just keep shipping after the factory closed. Production actually went up. Fewer people inside, and somehow more candy coming out than ever before. That's not a business quietly surviving a shutdown. That's a business running better with everyone gone. Roald Dahl wasn't shy about why he wrote stories this way. He said plainly that his children's books ran on consequence. Good behavior gets rewarded. Bad behavior gets punished. No exceptions. That's not a detail critics invented after the fact. That's the author telling you the engine under the hood. The betrayal that changed everything: Slugworth, Fickelgruber, Prodnose. Every name tied to Wonka's downfall got close to him first, then turned on him. From Wonka's side of the story, adults didn't compete with him. They betrayed him. And once you start looking for it, that pattern doesn't stop at the rivals. Watch every adult authority figure across this entire story. Parents can't control their own kids. Veruca's father buys her way out of every consequence. Mike's parents can't get him off the television for 5 minutes. Teachers don't appear at all. Businessmen scheme behind each other's backs. Every grown-up in this story is either useless, complicit, or already caught cheating. Adults aren't villains here so much as a category Wonka has simply stopped counting on. He didn't just lose trust in his rivals. He lost trust in grown-ups. Period. That's exactly why every golden ticket goes to a child, and not one goes to an adult. The workforce no one could bribe. For years, rumors filled the gap. Ghosts running the machines, robots on the line. A secret skeleton crew smuggled in at night. None of it was true. The real answer was stranger. Wonka struck a deal with a tribe from a dangerous jungle called Loompaland, a safe home and unlimited cacao, in exchange for total loyalty and total silence. Watch the Oompa Loompas closely during the tour though. They're not just workers. They're witnesses. And 3 details give them away. First, the songs. A full verse, with rhyme and rhythm, ready to perform within seconds of a child failing. Nobody writes a song that fast. Second, the timing. They don't arrive after the accident. They're already in position before it finishes happening. Third, the reaction. Nobody working that factory looks alarmed. Not once. Not even when a child is being sucked up a pipe. People who witness a real accident for the first time don't act like that. People running a rehearsed one do. 5 kids, 5 flaws. 5 traps built to spring out of millions of kids who bought a Wonka bar. 5 found tickets. That's not luck. Look at who they are. Augustus is gluttony. Violet is blind ambition. Veruca is entitlement. Mike is obsession. Charlie is the only one with nothing but humility. 5 kids, 5 vices. And if that list sounds a little biblical, that's because it basically is one. It's the 7 deadly sins, trimmed down to 5 and given kid-friendly names. Look closer at each one, because the film hands you the evidence before the factory even opens. Augustus is introduced mid-bite, sausage in one hand, chocolate bar in the other, unable to stop eating, even for the camera. Violet is introduced mid-brag, listing her competition trophies before anyone asks. Veruca is introduced mid-tantrum, ordering her father to buy her the very thing the whole world is searching for. Mike is introduced mid-argument, correcting the adults around him about statistics nobody asked him to calculate. Charlie is introduced doing none of that, walking home slowly, past a shop window, wanting the chocolate, but not demanding it. The movie tells you exactly who's walking into that factory before a single gate opens. Now walk the factory, and watch each vice meet its exact match. Augustus gets a chocolate river he can't resist falling into. Gluttony meets a temptation, shaped exactly like itself. Violet gets an untested prize she has to be first to try. Because ambition without patience always reaches for what hasn't been proven safe yet. Veruca gets a nut room that finally tells her no for the first time in her life. And it's not an accident that the ones enforcing that no are squirrels, not people. The one thing money can't buy off. Mike gets a TV machine built for the one obsession he can't put down, and the machine doesn't punish him for watching television. It grants his exact wish and shrinks him down to fit inside it. Wonka barely lifts a finger through any of it. He just watches. Every room isn't a stop on a tour. It's a trap keyed to one specific kid's weakness, and every kid walks straight into their own. What actually happens to the 4 who fail? Every time a child disappears, Wonka waves it off. He'll be fine. The film cuts away before you ever find out. That's a real gap. And here's the part most theory videos skip. You don't have to guess, because Roald Dahl already answered it. In the sequel book, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, all 4 kids turn up again. Thinner, humbled, changed, but alive and fine. The movie chooses mystery. The author already chose an answer. What matters more than whether they survive is this. The moment a child fails, the story stops caring about them. The tour doesn't pause to check. The factory never needed them past that point. And that's the actual strange part. Not that they survived, that Wonka never checks. No phone call to the parents. No visit to the hospital wing. No follow-up of any kind. A man who tracks everything happening in his factory suddenly stops watching the instant a child is no longer useful to him. That's not carelessness. That's someone who already got what he needed from that particular kid and moved on. The test inside. The test. You've probably already heard the popular version of this theory. Charlie passes because of character, not because he's perfect. That part's true, but it undersells what's actually happening. Charlie isn't perfect either. He sneaks a fizzy lifting drink he wasn't supposed to touch and nearly gets shredded by a ceiling fan for it. By the tour's own rules, that should end him too. It doesn't, because the real exam is still coming. In Wonka's office, Slugworth offers Charlie a fortune to steal a single everlasting gobstopper. Charlie hands it back. This is what literary critics would call a morality play. A story built entirely to test one virtue under pressure. And Wonka isn't grading for a kid who never slips. He's grading for a kid who gives something back when it actually costs him. The scene you've watched 100 times before the big reveal, it's worth sitting in the scene that makes any of this matter. Charlie doesn't come from privilege. He shares one bed with 4 grandparents and eats cabbage soup, while richer kids find golden tickets by the dozen. That's the image a lot of us grew up rewatching. Not the chocolate river, not the elevator, but a poor kid and his grandfather splitting one candy bar like it's a feast. Every trap in this factory only means something because of that kitchen table. Wonka isn't just testing character in the abstract. He's testing it against a kid who's had every reason to become bitter, and hasn't. And that's exactly what makes Charlie the hardest candidate on the entire list to evaluate. Augustus, Violet, Veruca, and Mike fail because they have too much and still want more. Charlie has almost nothing. So the real question was never whether he'd resist temptation. It was whether poverty had quietly taught him to take whatever he could get the moment no one was looking. This kitchen table isn't a pause in the investigation. It's the hardest part of it. Why the trap was never about chocolate. Put it together. The contest. The rooms built for one kid each. The rumors that turned out wrong. The gobstopper. None of it was a factory tour. It was a job interview wearing a children's fantasy as a disguise. And the trap, from the very first minute of this video, was never about chocolate at all. Wonka's real problem was never a rival stealing a recipe. It was legacy. Who takes over an empire when the man who built it can't run it forever? He needed an heir, and after everything the adults in his life had done to him, he wasn't going to find one over the age of 12. But here's the layer that changes everything. This was never 5 equal candidates and a fair contest. 4 separate clues point the same direction. First, the odds. Wonka printed exactly 5 golden tickets and dropped them into the entire world's chocolate supply. And somehow, the one kid who couldn't afford a second bar, in the one country buying the least chocolate, still finds his ticket practically in his own backyard. Second, the coin. Charlie doesn't buy his winning bar with saved-up allowance. He finds money in the gutter, on the way home, at the exact moment he'd already given up looking. Convenient timing for a story that claims to run entirely on luck. Third, Wonka's reaction. Watch his face in the ticket holder scenes with the other 4 families. Polite, distant, already looking for the exit. Watch his face the moment Charlie walks in. It's the only time in the entire tour he looks like he's been waiting for something. Fourth, the circumstances themselves. Of 5 kids on Earth who could have found that ticket, the contest somehow selects the one kid whose poverty makes the test of character actually mean something. That's not a coincidence a story needs. That's a story building its own conclusion in advance. So here's the concrete answer to the question we opened on. The trap wasn't built to catch a thief. It was built to catch a kid worth trusting with the keys. And it's worth asking whether Wonka ever needed 5 candidates at all, or whether Charlie was the only name on the list, and the other 4 tickets were just there to make it look like a fair game.